So before you talked about how you saw the trailer, you saw it in theaters, and then that became, I'm assuming that from that point on, your favorite movie of all time. Is that right?
Yeah, I was just I was really into Wesley Snipes. That was my dude. Faster 57 Days. Like I love me
Yeah,
some
Fast and Furious 7,
Wesley,
right?
dude. Yeah, so
Oh,
that's my guy. So and then with Sylvester Stallone, of course, with Rocky and everything else. And this was I believe it was coming out of the 80s action movie thing.
yeah.
I think I had just kind of caught up on like Commando and Predator and all that type of stuff because I was pretty young, you know what I mean? So it
Yeah,
was just
yeah,
like what this is a new one that's kind of coming out. And I was 13 years old at the time,
mm,
and it was the coolest thing ever to think about the future
yeah.
and this futuristic thing. And I remember being super hyped for it, remembering like the day that it comes. It was the first time as a child that I marked my calendar, like for it. When they release, they do the
Yeah.
marketing for a movie.
Uh-huh.
They're like, mark your calendar. I'm like, I marked my calendar. I was like, I can't wait to see this movie. Like, you know, and I went to go see it, and it blew me away. I was uh, super impressed at everything they did, and I loved the vision, and it was just mind blowing. Like, it was great. It lived up to expectation.
You know what? When I first saw the movie, because I never saw it in theaters, I saw it. I think I rented it. If I'm not mistaken, it was. I can't remember if I rented it or if my dad got it on pay per view back when pay per view was in those days where you had to like buy the movie on TV,
Right?
whatever. So,
Pay per
well,
view.
anyway, so I can't remember, it was one of those two. But anyways, when I saw the movie, I remember when I was a kid because the movie came out in '93, and I think I saw it in '94, and I was so scared at the time because I think I might have been 8 or 9 at that time, that because the movie takes in the beginning of the film takes place in Los Angeles, 1996, and it was
It's
this
a friend.
dystopian Los Angeles, and I'm thinking that's only 2 years away, like, and I was just like terrified because then I remember I saw the movie previously, Predator 2, which
Yeah.
takes place in 97, I
Right.
think, and I'm thinking like, oh, that's only like 7 years away or whatever it was when I saw it at that time, and all I kept thinking about was like the world's just gonna crumble by the end of the decade, and I've got so much time to live, and I'm like, and I was just concerned
Yeah.
about myself, like what am I gonna do? Having
You were worried about the apocalypse
I was
because of this
I
movie.
was a kid. Yeah, I was so naive. But anyway, so I was like, I was
Who
thinking
would have
about,
who would have thought that it actually would be coming true now in 2021 or 2022? They
I
were
know,
only
right?
30 years off.
Well, like, so I'm watching the movie because I saw Predator 2 and I'm watching this film, and I'm thinking like the world's gonna end before we hit the new decade. And I just kept thinking to myself, Stallone's telling us how the future's gonna end. What's his name? Danny Glover's telling us how the future's gonna end. Like these guys are telling us something for a reason. We have to pay attention. Because I was so naive, I used to think that they know the answers to solve the problems to our future.
The characters or the actual actors
No,
knew the
well, I
answers.
mean, like I was cognizant of what was going on. I knew it was a movie, right?
Okay.
But at the time, I was a religious person as a kid, and I was watching things I shouldn't be watching. So there was that guilt factor behind it, right?
Mm.
So, and because of those guilt factors that I had behind, that was instilled into me. Well, not instilled, but just what I was growing up with, as far as the religious aspect is concerned. I'm thinking about how the future's gonna turn out, and Hollywood is telling us this is how it's gonna turn out. But in my mind, I'm thinking, but the heroes are telling us how we can get ourselves out of it. Is how I
Mm.
looked at it.
I like that.
So I was looking at it as like there's a negative, but there's also a positive. So the way I think now, it stems from that background of like I shouldn't be watching this here, but the
I need
future's
answers.
right, right, right. It's exactly, you're 100% right. So that's kind of where it stems from. So that movie, as big of a Stallone fan as I am and as I was at that time too, like I remember distinctly watching those two films and how the future was going to look for us, and I just thought there's got to be a way out of it, and this movie is going to help us find that key to save
Mm.
mankind, if you was. It sounds really stupid, but anyway, so that was one of the first memories I had of like how that movie impacted me to some degree. But then when I finished watching and I was like, this is one of the greatest things I've ever seen in my life. And from that day forward, Stallone was an actor that I really liked. But that movie, and along with Rocky, really solidified him as like being like the absolute favorite actor of all time for me. To this very
Yeah.
day, he's still my favorite actor of all time.
Hey, I love it. Expendables, love them.
Expendables. I'm excited for the fourth one that's coming out because he already finished shooting that one if I'm not mistaken. So and I'm hoping that turns out pretty good.
We'll see. But yeah, man, this was great. The same way that you feel about Stallone, that's how I feel about Wesley Snipes. Unfortunately, he had that whole situation, the tax situation that kind of basically took him out during his prime. You know what I mean? But it's good to see him back in movies and whatnot now. But I mean, if you remember, Wesley was killing it. He was the it dude, black dude, for for film at that time. Yeah, and then he had moved into the action genre and whatnot. But he was, with
because before that he did what was it? White Man Can't Jump, Money Train.
Money Train. He did what else? Passenger 57, of course.
I think that one came out afterwards, didn't it?
I believe Passenger 57 came out after. I don't have it in front of me.
But then he also did New Jack City as well too, where I think he's one of the villains in that movie too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Nino Brown. He's one of the iconic gangsters. You know what I mean?
Snipes at that time. I remember thinking like,
no, actually, Passenger 57 came out a year before Demolition Man.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes
Demolition
sense.
Man came out in 93. Passenger 57 came out in 92.
Okay. So Snipes, I remember at
Jungle
the time,
Fever. He did Jungle
Fever.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, Snipes was at that time for me where he was like, apart from maybe from Eddie Murphy, because Eddie Murphy with comedy, like he was killing it. But Snipes, in my opinion, was a guy that was doing dramatic films and he was also doing action films, and he was killing it in both genres. And for him to be playing a villain with like a top tier level actor and actually can hold his own, like that's where for me, right? I mean, I liked him before, but after watching that movie, I was like, holy shit, this guy can really.
Yeah, because Stallone also was kind of at the top of his deal.
He was having a comeback
with the Rambo and the Rocky and all that type of stuff. It was at the time, it was like, it was also like a super big movie because it's like these two big iconic stars coming together for this type of film, and it just lived up to that hype. You know what I'm saying? Like Simon Phoenix, I still think is one of the best. Like, if there's anytime someone asks me like, what villain would you want to resurrect and put in, Simon Phoenix is always. He was so dope. He was so great as a villain. You know what I mean? Like, he was fun. He was a fun villain.
Do you think that movie could work today? Because when I saw the movie fairly recently, in preparation for the review, but when I was watching it, there was a part in the movie where, what was it? It was in the museum where Simon Phoenix was like was making fun of the Chinese folks that were walking by. Remember that scene? Like, and I remember thinking like, that's not gonna work. Yeah, and I'm there like, I'm watching, it's like, that will not work today.
But I think it does. And you know why? So, they had that scene, or throughout the movie, they had the thing with the cursing and the censorship that was happening, which I'm like, wow, that really parallels today. If you think about where we're going, and like
100% right.
How, would they start instituting like, well, if you say this, you get a demerit, and that's a thing that's, happening or whatever. But I think they could just play it into that. I think, nowadays, instead of saying like, cursing, it would just be like using unseemly language, like saying gays or you know what I mean? Like,
they're not even touching each other too. They're like, hey guys, and they're just doing that.
I think that's how they would do it. But, it would be interesting to see, and I think because the movie came out in 93 and it said that in 96 this is what's going to happen 3 years later, I feel like if it came out today and it said in 2025, we'd be like, oh yeah, dystopian, like, yeah, I could totally see that in 3 years, like how it goes. And I think the movie was around, there was like riots and stuff in LA or whatever,
because LA Rise was like at 91, I believe, so it was kind of like still fresh off the tail ends of that.
And I think it was kind of like, that idea of like LA is going to slip into a dystopia or whatever. And I mean, it's funny, not funny, but LA is kind of slipping into a dystopia now. And it's like, literally, like I said, like in 3 years, 2023, this movie came out in 93 or whatever, 2026 or whatever, like it could look like that, with the Hollywood sign on fire and, all this other kind of crazy stuff. It's just interesting to see how far off they were, but how close they got it. Like, they got it pretty right with self-driving cars, the censorship stuff, all the people eating, you know what I mean, like differently, like not really being able to get like a burger, like having to get rat burgers.
I'll I'll never forget John Spartan's reaction to Stallone's character when the guy was like,
I would like you to accompany me to Taco Bell.
Look forward to it. Thank you.
"Yeah, I'd be honored."
Yeah, man, that was that was great. Although I don't know nowadays, I'm like, who would win the? I think the one thing that they didn't foresee was that Popeyes would probably win the franchise wars because they had that spicy chicken sandwich that came
Yeah.
out of nowhere. So
Yeah.
I think that would take the place of Taco Bell winning. But Taco Bell's trying to fight back. They're making like graphics and everything. So who
Well,
knows? who's gonna
Taco
win
Bell
the
at
franchise.
one point had a big problem with the meat being like tainted or something like that. Wasn't there a story about that a while
I
back?
think it might have been rat meat. No, I'm just
Oh,
that's from the movie. Don't
yeah.
take this out and say that we're slandering the
Say
name.
that context.
No, but they did have a problem with like contamination of meat. I don't know. It's just but it was funny though, that scene where he's like underground and he's eating the burger and she's like, I can't believe you're gonna eat that. And then he's like, what? It's a burger, it's great. And then she's like, you don't see any cows around here, do you? And he's like, what is this made from? And the lady's
She's
like,
like,
it's a
"Rata."
rat.
Yeah.
El
rata.
ratón.
He's like, rat burger. It's the best burger I've ever had in my life.
Rat
Thank
burger,
you.
huh? But
Prego, and it walks away.
Was it? I thought it was also cool that they had, a little bit of Spanish in the, you know what I mean, from there. I don't know if that was like anything that you like thought was cool when you saw it,
At the
but it was-
time when I saw it, I can't really remember what my thought process was, but when I saw it, because I've seen the movie a million times, but I think at one point, maybe like still fresh off watching it again from the first time, I think I was excited to hear the fact that Stallone understood Spanish.
right.
So in my mind, I'm thinking like, oh man, if I meet one day and if I get to meet Stallone one day, I can talk to him in Spanish and we're gonna have a conversation. He'll talk to me, like that did cross my mind.
That's
But then-
funny though, because it is like a thing. It's just like, I don't know, just when I was that young, it was just kind of cool to hear like, oh, he's interacting with some of the characters in Spanish. That's cool. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
yeah.
not that it had never happened in a movie before, but
Right.
in a blockbuster kind of movie, it's like I don't know if it was, that.
I don't
that
know.
interesting.
I don't
I
really-
remember it stood out to me that I was like,
yeah, I know
oh,
what
that
you're
was
saying.
cool.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that with Stallone, when he walked away from the lady, instead of saying denada like in Spanish, he said prego, which is Italian for you're welcome. And I was like, so he's talking in English, the lady's talking in Spanish, and then when he says, when he says you're welcome, it's prego and it's Italian. I was like, man, this is like kind of like lopsided, but whatever, But they seem to understand each other. But so like that to me, like I remember when I watched the movie again, I'm thinking like it seems like, it doesn't matter what language you speak. It seems like everyone in the future knows the language. So
Yeah.
when everyone just responds in English. So and considering that's LA, it wouldn't surprise me if that people don't know to speak the language, like Spanish, but they understand some of it. So that's kind of like what I got. That's the vibe that I got off of that. So let me ask you about the story about how the movie takes place in San Angeles. So it's basically Los Angeles and San Diego combined together, but it's never explored outside of. We don't really know if the whole world was actually turned into that kind of future. It was always just an isolated story. But I always wondered, like, do you think the other parts of the country or other parts of the world have that kind of same protocols, if you will, set of values that this guy has? Because there's always this one guy that led this whole change. So I mean, did you? Cocteau. I never understood that name.
I never thought about it outside of that. I never thought about
I was going to ask you that
outside of those. You know what I mean?
It never crossed my mind to question it until someone brought it up, and I thought, I never thought twice to think about that, because to me that's just a testament to how good the story was that made you just focus on that and not concern yourself about the bigger picture, if you will. So I mean, I think they've done a pretty good job.
It was interesting too, like just projecting out how they talked about Arnold Schwarzenegger being the governor. The president, and he wasn't even the governor at that time.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like and then he became the governor. It's like, oh damn, did they know? Like, were they on something? No, yeah, man. I never thought about it outside of that. I was too busy having fun with these characters, dude. Like John Spartan and Simon Phoenix. I was just too busy having fun with them to care about like what happens. I did think about the ramifications of like cryo prisons and all that type of thing, which I still think is like kind of an interesting idea, to like the behavioral modification in cryo prisons. Like,
oh yeah,
But
John Spartan is a professional seamstress now.
yeah,
Ever since
you know
Born
what
One.
was crazy though? Like just taking it back to the very beginning of the movie, right?
Right.
I don't know if you remember this, but the very beginning of the movie, John Spartan's flying in because they're flying in over LA or whatever, right?
I think I know where
And
you're
you
going
know,
with
the people are like, "What are we doing?" And he's like, "We got to go in because you know this guy Phoenix is terrible. Da da da
Yeah.
da da. Is bad." And I was like, "Damn, this dude really has a hard on for him." And I was he had such a hard on for Simon Phoenix that he jumped out of the helicopter and screamed his name. I was like, yo, this movie is about to be wild. Like he like how much like even if you're you know what I mean, like I don't know, like if you're that seems obsessed. Like I'm obsessed with this dude.
Yeah.
Like
Well, he was
everything
hunting
I
him for
do-
what, 2 years prior to that movie, right? Yeah. So yeah.
but to jump out of the helicopter
Worth an
screaming his
ex-girlfriend.
name is
I still every single time I hear that, yeah, honestly, I don't know, I'll try to find it one time, I couldn't find it, but I wanted that to be my ringtone, so I knew someone would call me that's all I wanted to hear.
You can
But
do it
yeah,
now. You can
well, I'm
do it
sure you can. I just haven't looked. This was like over a year ago when I tried to look for it. It wasn't available for some reason. But anyways, yeah. But so with this movie, one of the things I loved about the film was that, to me, because the action genre, I'm sure if you know, is my favorite genre of all time. That
Mhm.
movie was the pinnacle of what, because if you think about it, that movie is like right in the crux of like, the tail end of the 80s, and then the identity of the 90s, especially when it came to the action films, or just the 90s in general.
Right.
Like that movie was like that pinnacle of like where everything was trying to shift over to what we know.
Yeah,
with
I
like,
think was that maybe like the last kind of like I don't know, would you like kind of in that Lethal Weapon style of genre of like buddy cop, like
well,
cat and mouse, like
yeah,
high octane. Like I feel like that you're right. It was kind of like the apex. I think
yeah,
it started being a little bit different after that. I think after that, like Speed came out and
yeah,
became more like cerebral, like
yeah.
kind of things. And this
Like
was
the
like the
thinking
last
man's action, I would say.
yeah,
Yeah,
like the last, running and diving from bullets type of thing.
yeah.
Maybe not the last one, but I know
No,
what you're saying in terms of pinnacle. Like this was one of the it was kind of the end of that era, I feel
yeah.
like, and it started like a new era of action.
I would say so, yeah. And then you mentioned about Speed, and of course we've got like I don't know if this is considered to be an action film, which I don't think it really is, but we got like the Professional and a bunch of other movies of that sort. But yeah, because like to me, like that Demolition Man was like that cream of I'm like the cream, the pinnacle of like what I loved about the action film, the action genre, which is you got a high testosterone level type of hero when you have a villain that matches that as well too. And then the plot is very simple, but as far as like all the banter between the hero and I guess the sidekicks, and then all the other the stereotypical stuff we come across when it comes to like the chief that's pissed off at everybody, except this guy's a little more, I guess you could say, a little more sophisticated in that respect. But the villain has someone else who's overseeing it, has that same type of approach too, but he's obviously in a different level of like authority, whereas the other guy is put there because someone allowed him to be there. So you can see that where the structure of like of hierarchy is at. But the movie I thought handled that so well, and like I said, it's Stallone to me when I saw that image of John Spartan, with the hat and the gear that I was like, that's exactly what a hero should look like. And then you have Snipes as Simon Phoenix, who was the exact opposite, where Spartan was more militaristic in a way, and Snipes was more, Phoenix was more like, I wouldn't say the Joker, but he was just the polar opposite of like the look of the character. Like you by looking at them, who's the hero and who's the villain. But he
Well, I
looked
mean,
cool doing that.
I agree with what you're saying, and I hate that I agree with what you're saying because I feel like it was so like if you think about it, outside of his suicide or homicidal tendencies or whatever, Simon Phoenix dressed really wacky. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you think about it, he had like a wacky outfit, and his hair was like he had striped pants on and orange color. Like it was just like.
But he looked cool in it though. That's the thing.
Cool at the time, and he still looked cool. But it's just like he was a wacky looking character for that time. It's like, oh man, this guy's really whacked out or whatever.
I heard that Wesley Snipes hated that hairstyle. Then once they were finished shooting the film, once he was done, bzz, came right off. He said he just could not stand the look of the hair or the
I
headset.
didn't realize that. I thought it was great for a villain. I thought it was
I thought so
great
too.
but I could see how I would not want to wear that. That wouldn't I wouldn't want to wear that.
Yeah, same here. But yeah, I think with what we got this movie, to me, it still holds up very well to this day. It's one of the very there's quite a few action films that I always go back to, but it's certainly one of the top ones I go back to. For me, this is like one of my favorite. This is my favorite action film of all time. Like that movie is the pinnacle. For me? I know there's other better action movies. I'm not going to deny that, but this was everything that I loved about the action genre, and Stallone was like the example of what the action film should be like. Him and Stallone, I'm sorry, Schwarzenegger did that as well. But then Snipes was kind of like that fresh of breath air in the action genre, because he was doing something that was so cool, especially after Faster 57. But seeing him keep up with the guys with the likes of Stallone, in some ways, I actually thought he was better than Stallone too, because he was actually more interesting than John Spartan was.
Very much so.
So, and in a lot of ways, for me, Snipes is one of those actors that I think a lot of people tend to overlook and not realize that he's really good at what he does. When you watch movies like To Wong Fu, he is great in that movie. I don't know if you've seen that.
I will stand by this. I don't think he's ever made a bad movie, and I feel like the realness that he brings to any character that he portrays always makes the movie better.
I think so too.
Always.
Yeah.
Wesley Snipes always makes movies better. And if you think about it, this cast had a lot of that. Like Sandra Bullock, we haven't even talked about her.
No. Huxley.
She's
a beautiful woman.
And I hope I'm not saying this, and I don't mean this in a sexist way, but she was a super talented smoke show in this film. And you know what I mean? Like, she has this like just kind of happy-go-lucky like aura or charm in the film that makes the film really come together well, man. And I just thought all the pieces were pretty awesome. The one thing that you didn't get though in this film was a time when like Simon Phoenix and Huxley meet and like face off. Like she never faces off against him, you know what I'm saying? Like where she tries to fight him or do anything to him, or him do anything to her, which I thought was really interesting. Upon further review, I was like, oh, she never actually like was in danger from him, you know what I'm saying?
Benjamin Bratt got time with him, and I was like, man, come on, Bratt, get the hell out of there.
Yeah, Benjamin Bratt got body slammed or whatever, but she, like, if you go back and look at it, she wasn't like she was like tertiarily in danger, but never like in direct confrontation.
Yeah, like she's in the peripherals pretty much.
Yeah, like she could have caught a stray bullet.
You know, one thing that I don't know if you knew this about the movie, but you know that Stallone, or Spartan, I should say, had, they mentioned that his wife died in the Great Earthquake, and then he had a daughter, and then in the beginning of the movie, they told him that his daughter was dead, but in reality, that she was actually in the movie. And in fact, if you go watch the film now, you're not going to know this here until someone actually points it out. But there's one particular scene where Spartan is holding onto this one where Phoenix and all the goons come in and try to shoot everybody out in the sewage underground.
Yeah,
there's one particular moment, and again, you don't notice it, but I heard the commentary and I heard the scenes that they were talking about. There's a moment in the movie where Spartan's grabbing this one girl, this one lady, and he's holding her down while the shoot is happening. He's turning the table upside down to like protect them from the bullets,
like an umbrella.
Pretty much. That's actually his daughter. So she
was
actually
his daughter in the film.
It's supposed to be his daughter. She was one of the underground, I guess, rebels, if you will, that was avoiding Cocteau's utopia, if you will. So she was one of those people that was rebelling against that, and
that's interesting. But they never put that in the film.
They decided to completely remove it altogether, and which I think I don't know. I think about it now. I wish they would have kept that, but then again, the direction of the story would have changed a lot more, because now he has something a little more personally invested.
Well, because then it's more about, is he going to reconnect with his daughter or try to go on this vengeance spree to get Phoenix? And I think what they made was just a purely one, like by design, one-dimensional story of this guy after this guy type of thing.
I mean? I think it worked well for what they wanted to go for, and the fact that they had the ability to do that. I mean, I'm not sure if the movie was so well edited that, seeing if there was any sort of inconsistency, I never noticed it because it seemed like it was all placed pretty.
I didn't see any plot points that were missing. You know what I mean? Like, he asked about his daughter, and they're like, "No, they didn't make it."
Maybe they ADR, and they're like, "No, she's dead."
Yeah, and then I didn't even think about that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm remiss, and I wish I had the commentary for the film. I don't have the commentary.
I have it, and it is absolutely worth it. It's the director of the film, Marco. I forgot how to pronounce his last name, but he talked about what it took to make that movie, and he seemed like he had a pretty good experience, but for whatever reason, I guess the Hollywood system didn't really fit his sensibilities, and he's never really directed another movie ever since. But he seemed like but what you see him do with this movie, I was genuinely surprised to see he had not directed anything else after that. I mean, I think he did one other movie, if I'm not mistaken, but yeah, he did a phenomenal job. And the fact that I think he was coming off like commercials or music videos that he had shot. I can't recall what it was. But yeah, man, he did an awesome job. And
Brambilla, interesting.
Yeah. If you see his filmography, I don't think you see much of anything else outside of that movie.
That's really interesting. He just came in. You know what he is? He's the Gautier of films. He just came in, gave us a banger, and then disappeared and never made another one again.
Like, I can live off the royalty checks for the rest of my life. Thanks, Stallone. I can see that.
But that's kind of wild. That I didn't realize that either. That was that dude came in and he just did it, and he barely has. Yeah, I'm just looking there. Like, he doesn't have really anything going on. He does other like art installations or stuff,
right?
Stuff like that.
But I mean, look, when you see that, especially that opening shot of the movie where you had like that dystopian LA and it's on fire, I mean, it looks so epic and grand. They blew up that building, which is also a real building they blew up, that they managed to incorporate with the story. I thought, I mean, like it looks beautiful is what I'm trying to say. He did such a great job that, like I said before, I'm surprised he has not followed with anything else after that, because I'm assuming that after that movie, he was probably given the exact same thing over and over again. Hey,
like, do you want to do these big budget action movies?
Yeah, he probably wanted to move on from that, and I wouldn't blame him. And for him to be able to walk away from that, that takes a lot of balls and a lot of self-confidence to know what you want and don't want, and know where you stand with that. So I give him props for that if that's the case. But yeah, man, I think with what he was able to pull off, it was really, really amazing. And what was even more interesting, which crossed my mind after hearing the news, which I'm sure you knew about, that Stallone announced that they're going to be doing part 2.
What now? Because I was just thinking about this, right?
Okay.
Demolition Man was such a perfect like little gem, and then they didn't try to pilfer it, by going back to the well and do all these sequels, even though it was super successful at the time. You know what I mean? And usually, like, you do a Lethal Weapon, you get a Lethal Weapon 2, you get a Die Hard 2, you get a, you know what I mean? Like, but they didn't do that. They just made this perfect little gem, and then just left it alone. Just didn't come back. Left all these. I mean, I think maybe they would never be able to pull off the budget for a film like that again. Like, because by that time, after, they got Stallone, they got Snipes, they got Bullock. After that movie, they all blew up. Like, the price tag for a sequel probably would have been way too high. You know what I'm saying? Like, it would have just been too much.
Yeah, especially during that decade. Absolutely. But what I was trying to point out was that so Stallone in an Instagram post that he was doing like some sort of like live Q&A or something like that, someone had thrown out, hey, any talks of Demolition Man 2?
Can we get another demo, man? I think there is coming. We're working on it right now with Warner Brothers. Man, it's looking fantastic.
And then I thought to myself, if they were ever to do a sequel, you know who they should bring back to direct a movie? The same director in the first film, who has not directed a movie since the first film. I thought, what a good way to, if they're going to just do one more sequel, bring back the guy that did such a great job with the first movie, and just let him go, have at it with the directing duties, and see what else he can do to improve the story or whatever else. I think there's a lot of great possibilities of what they could do with that story, but I don't know what they would be able to do with it now, because it almost seems kind of like it just seems like an obsolete idea that there's nothing you can do to make it any better, because you're gonna lower the scale. I know the budget's not gonna be the same. Secondly, how can you take an interesting story in a lower scale and have that same feel to it, unless you're going to a completely different story with the same characters, but just in a different set of environments or whatever the case may be. So does Los Angeles go right back to where it was before? And now Simon Phoenix is back not Simon Phoenix, John Sparta's back into his own environment as well. I mean, there's so much you can do with that, but will it actually work? And knowing Stallone, how he likes to take stories in a much more realistic approach nowadays, as far as his characters are concerned, I would think he has a lot of saying power in that too. But who knows? And right now, like I said, he just finished shooting Expendables 4, which I'm excited to check out. I hope it's good. But the guy's aged, and what's he gonna do this time around that's gonna make him relevant and still make him interesting? That's what I'm really curious about.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
Speechless.
but Stallone, he's kind of, he seems like he's ageless. You know what I'm saying?
I know, right?
He kind of just is.
I'm expecting to be like 130 and be like, God damn, that guy's still alive.
Yeah, it's like, what do these dudes take? I'm 40 and I feel like I'm falling apart. Like, what are these guys doing that's different than what I'm doing as I eat like cheesesteaks and burgers every night? You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand why I'm falling apart. But no, I would love to see what Stallone does.
He's in his mid 70s right now, man. Can you believe that?
Dude, that's amazing.
I know, right?
That's amazing, dude. That's a whole nother life. You know what I mean? That he's just like starting out and he's doing all this stuff. It's so crazy to see like Liam Neeson and Arnold Schwarzenegger and Stallone and all these old dudes, you know what I mean, go out here and they're, like kicking ass. And I'm just like my hand, I can't open my hand in the morning. How are they doing it? You know what I mean? Like, man, it's crazy.
Barely get out of bed. No,
I barely could get out of bed.
Yeah.
But no, I didn't know, because I was just thinking this when I was watching it earlier. I was like, this is so great that they never made a sequel of it. But it's something that I'm so happy that they never made, and despite the fact that I desperately want it.
Yeah, same here.
I'm happy that they didn't do it, but I desperately want them to do it.
Yeah, I'm definitely conflicted in this one too. But if it's good, if it turns out well, then great. But
they said that they're probably going to make a new one.
They're in talks. That's the last I heard. This was over a year ago, if I remember hearing correctly, when he did this post on Instagram, and it became like headline news. Stallone says Demolition Man 2 is coming out. And he was talking about.
So many people love the movie. It's such a great movie.
Yeah, it's a great film. But again, it's one of those things where what else can you do with it? Oh shit, I got lunch. Thanks, babes.
Oh,
tacos.
Nice. Taco Bell in tradition. That's got to be your first for one of your reviews, where you just get lunch in the middle of it.
I know, right? Yeah. And legit, I got tacos here.
Oh my goodness, straight from Taco. Wow, y'all do it up. That is a gourmet taco.
All right, let me take a bite.
Yeah, can I come for dinner sometime? I would love to.
There you go, have some.
I would love to have tacos if you and your missus would.
Absolutely, man. Always welcome. Yeah, actually, it's funny because I was talking to my wife the other day about because I said I want to make tacos, but I want to make like the fried ones where you just mince up the chicken tenders or whatever, and then put some cheese into it and just melt it in there, and add whatever other stuff that you like, and that's all I want to have. And she's like, all right, well, I'll make it tomorrow, and then we're doing this here right now, and I just didn't expect her to come up here and bring this up here for me. So this is actually a complete surprise.
That's love.
Yeah,
that's the love.
All right, man.
And not super off target, because Taco Bell was the winner of the franchise war.
True. Well, and over in England or in Europe, I should say, it was Pizza Hut, because Taco Bell was, I guess, nowhere near as popular, whatever else.
That's interesting. You know why? Because when I went to Europe, Pizza Hut was a pretty big thing out in, I was in Poland, and Pizza Hut, they had a lot of Pizza Huts. And I was like, oh, why are all the, like, it was kind of like remember, I don't know if you had this, but in high school, how they had like pizza, like sometimes they had pizza vendors come in. So, and there was always like a big stack of Domino's pizzas or whoever, but sometimes it was pizza, and it was just like, oh, so I guess Pizza Hut won their vendor war, is what I was thinking when I went to Poland. I was just like, damn, everything's a Pizza Hut around here. They have these
Yeah,
little pizza shacks.
because in Europe, when they released it, they literally had to like digitally change Taco Bell to make it Pizza Hut, and then the ADR, what they had to change it from Taco Bell to Pizza Hut. So it was like a lot of extra amount of work to release the same exact movie with those minor differences
so that it made sense.
Mm-hmm.
Damn, that could also start the Mandela effect, because you know what I
Yeah.
mean. Then the one that then people would be like, "Nah, Demolition Man was all about Pizza Hut," and be like, "No, it was always Taco Bell," or vice versa, you know?
Right, and I'm curious now if because I got the Blu-ray, and the Blu-ray, you know, is the American release, obviously, but I'm wondering if it overseas, if they still release it as, you know, the as Pizza Hut till this day, you know, if they release it on TV, or if you were to buy it on Blu-ray or DVD, if it will have just that version of the movie. So I'm curious about
That's a deep cut about my favorite movie that I was not aware of.
Yeah, and I would buy that too. I mean, it's the same exact film, just those minor differences. I'd buy it. Fuck
yeah. There's so much about this movie though that was so great. I think like how society is split between these people who want like freedom. They want the freedom to like mess up or be dirty or not, you know what I mean? Like they want that freedom. Whereas like on the up world, it's like, oh, if you're into this like utopia thing, then you get to live amongst the elites and everything is pristine and your cars are self-driving and there's no cursing and little foods and we all dress in kimonos and you know what I mean? Like it's just interesting to see that's how, you know, they viewed society. And it kind of makes you wonder, like, are we going towards that?
You can definitely see those parallels right now, because a lot of it's not far off here. You know the fact that no one's touching each other these days for obvious reasons, and then everyone is being more PC, more cordial in ways that I didn't expect 5-7 years ago. So yeah, it's not too far off.
You know what else is interesting? I was like, when I watched it back now, I was like, oh, this movie is not realistic at all, because, you know, if a cop went in and accidentally killed like all these people, like they wouldn't face any consequences. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's like, that was that was just a thought. It's just like, yeah, like, cause like he went in to get Simon Phoenix, and then there's like all these people died, and he's like, oh, I hope you got a good lawyer, Spartan. And I was like, yeah, in this day and age, I feel like, you know, they would have, especially if the black guy is the bad guy in this, definitely sweeping this under the rug. And Spartan's never seen a day in jail or anywhere else, you know.
It's funny because in the movie, you know, since we're on the topic of the police officers in the film, Rob Schneider, who we forgot to mention, is in the movie too. There's a scene where Phoenix is kicking the shit out of all these officers when they're trying to apprehend him. And he's like, we're police officers. We're not trained to deal with this sort of violence.
Right.
And I was like, holy fuck. How so true is that today?
Yeah, right. It's just like, oh man. Yeah, you know what's crazy too? We talked about the franchise wars or whatever. But did you notice the car wars? Like who won the car war in like
no.
When they were coming out of the museum or whatever, like Oldsmobile is the car that like that's the dealership that they were coming out of. It was an Oldsmobile dealership.
I actually never.
Yep, you have to go back and watch it.
I have to watch it again. Yeah, I've never actually noticed that.
Oldsmobile dealership. I watched it because I was, you know, and I was like, that's so weird that they would think Oldsmobile would be. Why would Oldsmobile be the one that survived to the new age?
Fuck, that's why.
It's you know, so that was interesting.
That was probably
another thing that I really loved about the movie is I think it had one of the best sex scenes ever.
I remember as a kid when I saw that, I was like, because again, I'm like, I can't be watching this, but I just couldn't like help it. And then all of a sudden, I'm not joking, I remember like seeing that, and I walked away. I was like, well, that sucked.
You know what? I do remember being young and being like let down, because I was like, you know, it was like, ooh, we're finally going to get a sex scene with Sandra Bullock, and I've, you know, daydreamed about her, and it's so great. And then that was what you got, and I was like, oh, that was kind of a bummer or whatever. But I tell you what, I definitely have used those short little clippets of her flashing face, you know what I'm saying, to like no, I'm joking, but you know, it was just funny. Like that sex scene was pretty it was just interesting, because I feel like I would like to experience sex like in that way. Of course,
I
I
do
want to do
too.
it the normal way, but I
Right,
want to
right.
know like what's the virtual shit? You know?
Yeah,
What I mean? Like,
I was curious about that too. I'll see how that actually would feel like, because even like there's moments in the movie when you see Spartan just like, you know, making those, and then all of a sudden he's like, well, what the hell is this? He's like, we're having sex.
Yeah.
Like, that's what this is, you know. And I'm
Yeah.
like, holy shit! Like,
Did you see the boob in there? There's like one split second of a boob in the little flashing.
you know, I think I may have. I don't remember, to be honest, because once that scene comes on, I'm like, all right, turn. You know, let me do something else for the next minute or so. Uh, no, but
pornographic.
no, no, I just thought, because I've seen it so many times, I'm like, all right, I can do something else in the meantime. But I don't think I did. I may have, but I just don't remember.
It's definitely a boob in there. It's great.
Sandy's boob.
Yeah. So, but Sandra Bullock, you know, again, she's so great in this film. I don't know. Did you find her as entertaining when you watched it for the first time?
Yeah, absolutely. I love her character. But you know, the thing is that character is obviously like one of those I hate to say it like this, but she was one of those characters I remember at the time thinking like she could have been better, I thought. Because I really liked what she was all about, but I never felt like they really used her really fully to her full potential. Because that scene at the end where she's like, I'm gonna help out, you know, I'm gonna help you out. He's like, of course, Huxley. And then like he zaps her and knocks her unconscious.
Yeah.
He's like, it's for your own safety. And I'm like, dude, man, you know, that would have been the one time that you both could have really, like, you know, that was one of my biggest disappointments with the movie.
I was very let down at that moment as well for that movie. At that when they didn't let her have a part in the final scene, because throughout the whole movie you're kind of expecting her to like, all right, she's going to be a badass, she's been training for this, and then she's finally going to get to do it, and you're like, all right, here it goes, it's the big showdown, here she goes. And then it's like, you know, no. And I was like, oh really?
You know what I think was funny, and I like it because it's so ridiculous, but when they're in the highway scene at the end, where they came out of the sewer, and they had the that whatever vehicle that was, I've seen it so many times, I should know, that Mustang. Yeah. And still, you know, Spartan is driving the vehicle, and then they're chasing Phoenix, and then on the highway he's like, Huxley, can you drive? Take over. She's like, okay, I read the instructions, I know how to do this. Like she's like, has to say that out loud so that so the audience would know how she's able to pull this off, never having driven a car like that before, because they don't make them anymore. I don't know why. For me, and really, in most cases, I would have hated that. But for some reason, in this movie, I actually liked it. I didn't mind it at all. If
you notice in the movie, there's a lot of kind of like I think the way that they played it was very like quirky, and also kind of like, like there's a lot of like corny one-liners, and you know, it's like a I don't know how would I put this? It's just like a kid's movie almost, where it's like,
yeah, it definitely had a bit of that. Yeah.
And now I do this, and then like a zap you, like I don't know if you remember this. Remember in the museum, right, where they had fallen to the underground.
The
museum. Yeah. And then Spartan picks up and he's like, "You're on TV," and he like hits him with the TV. And I was like, "That's so like what? You're in the middle of a big fight and you're like coming up with these wacky one-liners, like you're
or when what's his name, Phoenix was like, it's time to die, Spartan, and he's like, you forgot to say Simon Says, and he puts that little zapper thing in the water, and he's I was like, this is
by the way, if you think about it, because I've noticed this a lot of times when I watching the movie, like that was their main trope of like how villains were going to die. So they did that like 3 times, where like the ground is filled with something and then they ignite it or do, you know, like the first time was when they were in the warehouse and he does it with the cigarette in the gasoline, and then the second time is when he does it with the little hand wand and the water, and and then the third time is to kill him with the ice thing. So it was like a trope throughout the entire movie of like, if you're standing in something wet, they're gonna like shock it. Or
and plus Phoenix has said that, you know, I'd be dead if it wasn't, you know, I'd lose my head if it wasn't
attached. And then he's like, I'll keep that in mind.
It's like, what's that thing called when it's not a premonition, foreshadow. Thank you. I should know that. Yes, and this movie was like filled with that stuff. Like it pretty much gave you the answers. It was like but that's the thing. It's a movie that everything is hand fed to you, but I don't mind it because I think the movie does these type of films for the most part. I would say 90% of them do it so well because all the other pieces that are putting it together, the people that are putting it together, make it so entertaining that I don't question it, even though I know it's ridiculous. I just don't care. I have fun with it. So
Yeah.
Wait, you were gonna say something?
No, I just another part of foreshadowing, I think, is like, did you know that Jesse Ventura was in this movie?
Yeah, he was one of the villains in
Yeah,
or the
and he's actually the guy who kills Cocteau.
Yeah,
but he has no speaking lines in it, and I'm
Yeah.
just like, that's kind of crazy. You know what I mean? Like
he's worked with Stallone,
yeah,
Schwarzenegger. Who else has he worked with?
Van Damme. No,
I don't think he's ever worked with Van Damme.
no, I just made that up. I was just thinking about all the 80 stars.
See,
But
he
no,
was
it was it was good. I love this. I love this film. What was a lot? I really I guess this is good because I feel like we're kind of getting to the end of like exploring this whole thing.
Yeah.
The one thing that I didn't like, or I guess the second thing, the first thing I didn't like was, of course, the Sandra Bullock misuse or misallocation of her talent by not letting her kick ass more in the movie. But the other thing I didn't like is I didn't like the Sting song at the end, like the theme song.
I hated that
song.
It's
so corny. It's so terrible. It's so terrible.
Because I remember I think they were going to use Grace Jones. You know who she is, right? The model.
Yeah.
I think because I think she had a song or an album. I think it might have been the song called Demolition Man, and I heard they were going to use her song.
Oh.
And then somewhere along the way, they thought Sting would be the better fit, and ended up using his song instead. Which I remember even to this day, I remember distinctly thinking that they had made the worst out of everything in the movie that worked so beautifully, in my opinion. The song that they pick at the very end was absolute crap. And I like Sting.
Ruined it.
I like Sting. I think he's a good singer and songwriter for the most part.
It felt like he just got the assignment and then got the check and then then was like, yeah, let me do this. Demolition Man.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like. So
I felt like it was like, I hate to say it like this, but to me, I always felt like it was more like him trying to do something that he wasn't known for really doing. I mean, what I mean by that is like the song he was trying to make is like he was trying to make a pop song and it wasn't good, rather than making a good song that turned out to be a good pop song.
Yeah.
So,
and it wasn't. It was supposed to be a poppy song, and it was, but it was like it was basically the worst possible solution to the song. You know what I mean? Like it didn't feel right. You know what I mean? It would have felt better.
It felt out of place.
It felt really out of place. It was like, there's the horns.
Armor Hot Dogs would have been the better song to end that movie with than the Demolition Man song by Sting. The Armor Hot Dogs. Is that the name of the
song? Like have a jingle for Pizza Hut or
that would have been that would have been much better to close off the movie than fucking Sting Demolition song.
Anyway, so that, and then my third disappointment, would be not ever figuring out how the 3 seashells work. And I think if they do a sequel, they'll tell us.
Well, someone actually went out of their way to go give like a detailed instruction. I don't know if you've ever seen it online. There's literally like a picture that someone drew, and it's actually really well done too, of like you take the two one and spread the butt cheeks and then wipe with the third one, right? It's like you have one scrape off one side and the other one scrapes off the other side, and the other one comes in the middle, I guess. And I'm like, well, then you throw it away, and then what happens? Someone else comes in afterwards. You rinse off. You rinse they rinse. I have no idea. They don't get it. Like that's the one thing that confuses me. I was like, okay, so then because when you're using toilet paper, you still have a roll, so I hope you wash your hands and you go out of your go on with your day. But in this situation, you use the seashells. How do you use it, and then do you reuse it again? Someone else use it. Yeah. It doesn't make it. It seems so. I guess unethical. You could sanitize seashells, maybe, or something. They use the same technology that they shock the graffiti off the walls with. So they just shock the shit off the seashells, and then you use them again. Well, Spartan was smart enough to go and say, when he started saying all these cuss words, then that thing would just buzz off every single time. He's like, wait a minute, and goes up and he's like, you cocksucking son of a bitch. Right. One of the favorite parts of the movie. He's like, all right, I'll be back in 5 minutes, and then goes away. And I was like, man, that's what. Why doesn't everyone else catch up with that? But anyways, yeah. But it seems like that was one thing that was always left for debate. And it's an odd one because that movie literally left people debating how do you use that, and something so
so great,
ridiculous,
so
and to this day people still talk about it, I think. But yeah, man.
So what was your favorite part of the movie? And I guess we'll close it out on that.
Yeah, I guess if I were to choose, honestly, I love the beginning. I love the intro. So that set the tone of like the epic scale what the movie is going to be all about,
right?
And it made there was no they didn't give you this false impression about what they're going for. What you saw is what you got, and it delivered in every front. So I love the fact that movie opened up epic. You got that wonderful scene where where just Spartan comes out looking all badass, and he's coming off, just doing all that, and then having this crazy shootout. Yeah, that fight scene between himself and Phoenix, and it's like it sets up the tone of what you're expecting, and it was consistent all the way through.
You know what's great about that fight scene too is like they didn't. So that fight, look, Wesley Snipes is a martial artist. That first scene, he didn't do any martial arts. It was just kind of hand to hand, punching, throwing, whatever.
Street fighting, yeah.
And then like later, you see him do all the martial arts. And it's like, oh shit, he like really learned how to do all that stuff there. My favorite scene, where you were done with
yeah, I'm all done. Yeah.
My favorite scene was I think it has to be the first time he encounters the future police, whatever, and he's just like going about his business, and then the guy's it's like put down your weapon and step away from the computer or else, and he's like okay, and then he just whips all their asses, and like really shows his command of the martial arts and his like fun, where he like turns around is like Olay, like I just thought it was just wacky, and up to the point where he like puts the little stick, the head stick in the fuel cell and blows up the car, and everyone's like just watching.
And he sings the Star Spangled Banner too to the camera.
And the Home of the Brave.
Oh, Home of the Brave. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's right.
And then the computer going off with murder, death, kill, like, and then they're just watching as it like starts springing up. I thought that's a really good one. So
it's a good one. Yeah.
I love the whole movie. I love everything up until things start singing.
Yeah, man. Well, that's I'm on the same boat with you on that. But yeah, man, this is a movie that I'm happy to rewatch over and over again. I love this movie. I still love it. It's still my absolute favorite action movie of all time. I know there are better ones out there, and I'm not one to deny that. But something about this movie was like solidified for me of what action films were at that time. And it was at that, as you mentioned before, that apex. And to me, it still holds up well to this day. And the fact that there's a lot of like parallels that the movie we see in the movie that kind of infiltrates in real life now, for that movie to kind of commentate on that to some degree, even more so now, that shows like how impactful cinema can be in that regard, even for something that's as superficial as an action movie where people tend to just overlook and just enjoy for what it is, but to still have that commentary left behind it for us to discuss on it. There's a lot to be said about it. So yeah, that movie is definitely ahead of its time, but at the same time, it's ahead of its time, but it's of its time too, and it holds up well on both ends. So
I love it. It's a great movie. Still top of my list of my all-time favorite movies. I love it, and I'm kind of excited that they're going to talk about a sequel. So
we'll see, man. I'm skeptical, but I want it, but I don't know. I'm up in the air for that one. I'm still conflicted with it, but the fact that we still have this one, that's all I really care about right now. So anyways, you want to close out with your social medias and where people can follow you and
you
check
can
you
find
out?
me at levelupcomedy.com. Glenn Lawrence Laughs, Glenn Levels Up on Twitter. So yeah, that's about it. Blur Dad Podcast coming out with the episodes on a weekly basis. Got some new stuff that'll be coming out when I'm ready to announce it. I will 100% do that. But yeah, man, thanks for having me talk about one of my favorite movies. This was great.
Oh man, thank you for coming on here. And for anyone else out there, follow me on my social media accounts on Instagram, Rob_Medina 0585, Twitter, Rob Medina 0585, Facebook, Rob Medina, and the show's social media accounts, You're So Cool with Rob Medina on Instagram, and on Twitter, You're So Cool with WRM. And I guess that would be it for the both of us here. So
one more thing. I don't know if you want to put this in the middle because it's like we already wrapped up, but
sure.
When they were one other cool part about this film, was they, you know, kind of are downloading all this stuff into his consciousness, Simon Phoenix, while he's asleep. And I'm like, yeah, the movie would have been much shorter if like one of the things they coded into his consciousness was marksmanship, because he missed so many shots so often. Like if it would have been marksmanship, it would be like, oh yeah, because there were so many missed bullets in this film. Like it was ridiculous.
It still had like that the A-team DNA left into that from the era. Yeah, you're right. I never actually thought about that.
If you go back and look at it, you're like, that was point blank. How did they miss that? You know, like when that was like when they were in the underground and they're looking at them eating the rat burgers or whatever, like they're standing over top of them with machine guns, and they miss everyone. It's like,
what? Yeah, that's 100% right. Yeah. That's
so anyway, that's also another of my favorite parts of the movie, just like that outlandishness. It comes from that era of, you know, shoot a bunch of bullets and miss them. So that was cool too.
Those were the days, man. And nowadays the genre has definitely evolved and for the better, I would say. But man, that's a part of my life that I truly do cherish, because that was like where the 80s and 90s were, to me, were some of the best decades of movies, and the action genre like was at its peak at that time. And I love it for it, and I'm always grateful that I was being a part of it to witness those movies when it was fresh out of the gate, if you will. So yeah, man. Yeah. All right, people.
Same.
I appreciate y'all for checking out this episode or this review, I meant to say. So if you have any comments you guys want to say about what we went over here, please let us know in the comment section down below, and also follow us on social media account too for new release Wednesdays, or I meant to say Nerds Rule the World on Instagram and on Facebook and on Twitter at the NRW. But until then, everyone, stay safe out there and